Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. Hello, Jennifer. Another Sunday. Another Sunday. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, look,
Hi.
Jeremy. Jeremy, I think Jeremy's with us, and he's the video I was just showing you from Clap. I think it was on Claps
Oh,
Chronicles. Jeremy is one of the signatories of the letter. The letter that's was out that I had done the story on what was last Friday. The letter
oh,
saying
okay.
basically we need to change the way shit's done. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No kidding, right?
Yeah. So how are you? How is everybody? What's going on? We got a busy
Well,
show.
we do have a busy show. Sandy, let me give
Mm-hmm.
you the 36,000-foot overview. Give people an idea of where we're going today, guys. It's going to be a pretty interesting show. So the first one is up from a publication, Legal Reader, legalreader.com. I don't know that we've actually ever featured their work before,
I don't think so.
but you'll like it. It's a brief summary of what we can expect: heat hurricanes, rolling blackouts, food shortages, high fuel costs, more COVID, political violence. By the end of summer, will people take our dire situation more seriously? There you
Oh
go.
boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay.
Things are heating up. Things are really heating up. It's actually happening.
They're heating up. Oh no.
Yeah. And
Mm.
the next one we have, Sandy, is from the Barents Observer. We love the Barents Observer. This is a little kind of field trip report of Vasily Ryabinin, and this has to do with the Norilsk oil spill, diesel spill. 2 years after huge Arctic spill, river water in Norilsk is still red from diesel fuel.
Wow.
Boo
That's going to be
hiss.
a wild one. Yeah, boo hiss.
Boo
Boo hiss.
hiss. Yeah, so he went up there, looked around, took a bunch of photos, and this is what he saw. Just out, Antarctica continues to lose records amount of ice. So this one just out June 9th from phys.org. Antarctic glaciers losing ice at fastest rate in 5,500 years.
Wow.
Study finds. Boo hiss.
Are
Um,
we having a boo hiss evening? Oh,
well, no, I
jeez.
mean, it is. um,
Oh,
so then we have one from Counterpunch, our good friend Robert Hunziker. This just out June 10th. Polar scientist explains perils of Thwaites Glacier. So this is a deep dive
jeez.
into Thwaites Glacier with
Yeah.
Ted Scambos, a
Yeah.
polar scientist from University of Colorado in Boulder.
Boulder. Gee, who lives in Boulder? Hmm.
Whatever do you people do in
In
Boulder?
Boulder.
All right. Then we have one from France 24. This is for our intermission. This
Intermission.
is a little video about the dire effects of the climate crisis in India. So, this is
Yep.
a deep dive into India and what is
Yep.
actually happening there on the subcontinent. We've talked about India on this show a fair bit. Um, then after that, we've got one from The Guardian. Gold rush for gas production threatens to lock in global heating. So, you know, as expected, we're going to burn it all up.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
then we've got a couple
Burn
of
it all up.
regional, yeah, burn it all up.
Burn it all
Yeah. Then we've got one couple of regional specials. Triple La Nina. Australia may face another summer of flooding rains. So they think that La Nina is actually going to be extended. So this is going to be 3 kind of La Ninas in a row, and it affects Australia with extreme rains. And then we're going to end up with a little short from Futurism that we thought you guys would find um, entertaining but horrifying at the same time. House prices surge in neighborhood predicted to be swallowed by the sea. And this is in Wales. So it's kind of interesting to see,
All right.
America's not the only place that's completely insane.
Oh, it isn't. It isn't. Oh no, there's a lot of insanity going on. By
Yeah,
the
no
way,
kidding.
really quickly, I want to tell you, Gary Hoover, I gave you a wrench tonight. You are the extra mod with Kim of the evening, by the way. So I just thought I would let you know that you have been chosen. All right. All right, Gary. You didn't know, but there you go. All right. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay. Well, shall we go ahead and take it away, Sandy? How would you
Take it
like
away.
to do this?
I'll
Shall
go
I?
for it, Jennifer. I'm so damn tired.
All
I
right.
mean, of course, I will be with us, but I you can you
Yeah.
can start.
No,
Yeah.
that's fine. I
Okay.
am happy to lift away. All
Thank
right.
you.
So, guys, we all always want to know what is happening when, and it's getting too complicated to figure it all out. But maybe by the end of summer, we know what to expect. So,
Yeah.
this just out. May 30th in the Legal Reader.
Yeah.
Heat, hurricanes, rolling blackouts, food shortages, high fuel costs, more COVID, political violence. By the end of summer, will people take our dire situation more seriously? The craziness seems to be speeding up, doesn't it? It's not difficult to see that we're on a trajectory to a radically different world than the one we've been used to in the post World War II era. The hard part is trying to predict when things will happen and pin them down to a useful time frame. With Memorial Day marking the beginning of the social, though not astronomical, summer season, let's peer into the crystal ball and see what we might expect to live through by the end of summer. First, it's going to be a hot one. The NOAA's most recent monthly climatic trend report anticipates higher than average temperatures across almost all of the continental United States, save for a couple of very lucky bubbles in the Pacific Northwest and the northern plains states. The desert Southwest and New England should prepare for a real scorching by the
Mhm.
end of summer, with no end in sight for the
Yeah.
western drought. This means more wildfires than usual, although with climate in flux, what's normal anymore anyway? By all accounts, there's a food shortage coming. Sarah Menker, expert food insecurity analyst, told the UN Security Council on May 19th that global wheat stocks were lower than expected, with only about 10
Mm.
weeks left at the current rate of consumption. And that was over a week ago. With other grains like maize and rice and cooking oil also in low supply. That means some serious hunger by the end of summer before the next grain harvest is due in the Northern Hemisphere. That next harvest is also looking to be smaller than usual. The Russia Ukraine war, in one of the world's most important bread baskets, will impact food supplies, of course. But
Oh
so will
no!
the rise So will the rising heat, ongoing drought, and climate crisis, fertilizer shortage, and price hikes, export bans in countries who want to safeguard their domestic food supply first, and continuing logistical bottlenecks. Some farmers in the southern plains have already abandoned their crops. Readers in the United States already feel the shortage as higher food prices, but it means that many people in poor countries will likely be priced out of food altogether, much as they were after the Great Recession in 2007. Other things, expect some bad hurricanes by the end of summer and into fall. For the
Oh, this is
seventh
fun.
season in a row, NOAA Hurricane Forecast predicts more storms than the 30-year average, with 14 to 21 named storms, 6 to 10 of which become hurricanes, and 3 to 6 of those being particularly intense. Hurricanes gain strength from warm ocean surface temperatures and warm air that holds more moisture. Relief efforts after those hurricanes and everything else in the country, really, will be harder and more expensive due to the fuel shortage and the rising price of diesel. Some big trucks already burn through $500 to
Holy shit.
$700 per day in diesel. Not only does this directly worsen the food shortage, it will also indirectly, as grain from the coming pitiful harvest will be diverted away from hungry people and into hungry gas tanks as biofuels. Last month, President Biden told Iowa farmers that he's raising the percentage of corn ethanol that can be blended into gasoline this summer, saving consumers 10 cents a gallon as prices zoom upwards of $6 in California.
Yeah.
By the
Mm.
end of summer, we can look forward to rolling blackouts across large swaths of the West and the Midwest. California could be 1,700 megawatts short of what is needed to properly run the grid across the state. 1 megawatt powers 750 homes. Michigan could also experience planned outages as a means of balancing demand with available supply in order to safeguard the grid. It is also possible that enough customers voluntarily reduce usage in order to conserve energy, especially during the peak hours in the heat of the day. But what are the chances? Don't forget, there's still a major virus going on that can be fatal
There
or
is?
cause
You'd
lifetime
never know that
disability.
here where I live. God
COVID
damn.
transmission
Kovo.
is 5 times greater than it was this time last year. Wow. And people are traveling more and taking fewer precautions
Mm-hmm.
to prevent the next spike or new variant from catching hold. Dr. Deborah Birx predicts that a waning immunity and uptick of cases internationally will mean another wave of infections by the end of the summer. In Ukraine, Russian officials expect to win by the end of summer, seizing at least the Donbass as Western nations weary of sending weapons and aid as the grind drags on. For their part, Ukrainian forces seem grittily determined to retain their homeland and drive out the invaders, unwilling to appease Moscow, at least momentarily, by ceding land permanently.
Mm.
Russia may be right. How long can a world beset by hunger, fuel shortages, storms, and heat maintain the kind of excess economic activity that underwrites billions of dollars in weapons sent as charity in a potential forever war? As the economic costs tick upward and relief becomes harder to find, we also expect everyday people to act out, whether or not those actions are aimed at causes of our converging crises. It shouldn't be surprising to see a rise in political tension as the hunger hits, especially in the poorest countries where bread
Yes.
becomes unaffordable.
That's going to be fun.
As material conditions degrade expect a growing number of attacks on minority populations as people kick downward at those with less social power or the ability to resist.
That's gonna hurt.
Fascism won't solve this interrelated rat's nest of crises. However, it can feel like in group bonding, perhaps among certain authoritarian demographic that expects to rise to the top of the
Well, that's
dung
it.
heap. Top
The
of the dung heap.
the gong heap.
After the system implodes. It's kind of like being a king of the shit hill, you know? Good job,
God.
guys, right?
Oh.
Mm, not all bad news. If there's a silver
Oh.
lining to be found here, it's that by the end of the summer, more people will have more clues about where things are headed and how the crises all feed into each other. It's too late to hit rewind and fix the problem, of course. We already collectively decided to sell out the future for a more convenient present that has since faded into the past. However, it's not too late to take some actions, however small, to mitigate and adapt to the path ahead,
Yeah.
especially at the community level. The sooner we start, the better.
That, I like this. They have a lot of sources. I'm going to check out
Yeah, they
this
do.
legal reader and find out more about it.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely am. And the person, thank you, Jennifer. It's just
Hmm.
reminding me to tell all of you that grow food, even if you live in an apartment, try to grow food in container gardens, on your windowsill, anything you can do. And by all means, everybody, stock up on your coffee. If you are a coffee drinker, stock up on your coffee and learn how to grow coffee no matter where you are. If you drink coffee, that is something that people I know are trying to do, even though coffee is usually for the warm the warm countries, Colombia, the southern hemisphere, and the summit. And don't forget the southern hemisphere. They are going to suffer. The people in the
Oh, yeah.
southern hemisphere are going to suffer because we rich Western countries in the northern hemisphere have made it that way. So, okay, there's my little political thing. I've been doing a lot of history, listening and reading, and we're in a time like no other. Yeah, okay. Jean says, coffee likes high altitude and no winter freezing. And Rich Diana, I am not the mistress of hoarding. I'm sorry. I am the mistress of teaching to grow shit. I don't know. And I'm not even that good. Everybody always wants to tell me how to do everything, which is great. I don't mind. Jennifer, thank you. That was a good one. I guess I'll do
Yeah.
the Barents Observer. I mean, we're going to talk after. And remember, guys, if you have questions, please put your a Q in front of it. Gary knows how to do it very well. Put a Q, and we will do that. And we also do have an intermission today. So I am going to start with this one. This is the one that Jennifer and I have been following for how long now? 2 years after the
Yeah, ever
huge,
since it
yeah,
happened, we've
yeah,
been
ever since it
getting
happened.
updates.
Yep, this guy found plenty of oil in the water, and that was during a recent visit to Norilsk. Now,
Mhm.
that's pretty heavy. So, 2 years after this huge Arctic spill, the river water in Norilsk is still red from diesel fuel. And I bet they're thinking right now, what a waste for the diesel fuel to be sitting there and being in the water when there's shortages. But I don't think that the president of that country could give a shit about the environmental, well, maybe a little shit. I'm not Russian, so I can't say. 2 years have passed, and there have been some cleanup operations, but these dirty red substances are still in the ground, and nothing has changed, says Vasily Ryabinin. He stands by a stream. Look at that. Oh my God, that makes me want to barf.
Mhm.
It's just awful. Look at that. That's red diesel fuel 2020 all over the vulnerable Arctic nature from a collapsed oil tank reservoir. It hurts to see this. Just does. More than 21,000 tons of fuel spilled into the tundra, streams, and lakes when the tank tilted and cracked following what is believed to have been negligent maintenance from Nornickel and its subsidiary Norilsko Temyersky Energy Company. And sorry, guys, I am very tired, and I will tell you why in a little bit. Time flies. 2 years have passed, and nothing has changed. Red water is still flowing, he says in a video, which we're not going to show, but maybe if we want to later, we can come back. The video is recorded only a few days after Nornickel announced that the environmental situation in the area is satisfactory. Oh, wow. I wish I had a one that says bullshit. Oh, by the way, Jennifer, I was looking for an oops sound effect. I couldn't find an oops anywhere. And now I know, okay, I couldn't find an oops one. So, okay, I'll tell you what this one is. This is for Matt. He's not with us, but this is magical thinking, because they say, the video, according to the company, comprehensive study by more than 70 researchers from 10 research institutes concludes that cleanup in the area has been successful and that the local ecosystem is getting restored. The study included a wide range of tests of local waters, ground, botanics, fish, and wildlife, Nornickel informs. According to the leader of the research expedition, Fyodor Ramenko, the purpose of the initiative was to get accurate, comprehensive, and reliable research information based on complex study of current state of pollution in the water collecting parts of the Picena River. The river was among the waterways worst affected by the spill. The results of the studies allow the researchers to define the state of the ecosystem of the Norilsk industrial hub and the territory of the Tamer Peninsula as satisfactory, Norilsk informs us, right? However, environmentalist and activist Vasily Rybinin disagrees. He disagrees. He says, "Dear researchers, if you really want to check the true condition of the ecosystem, you can simply call me and I will show you where to check. Just call, pick up the phone, call me, I'll tell you how fucked we are." All right. He says, as he stands there, he says, "Perhaps this is simply as useful soil," the activist adds in an ironic comment aimed at the mining and metallurgy company. He better be careful. Really, seriously. He better be careful. Nornickel is known worldwide for its reckless care of nature around its industrial facilities. Is there any nature there? The vulnerable Arctic environment surrounding plants in Tamer and the Kola Peninsula have over decades been subject to serious degradation. Oh, sounds like the rest of the planet. The spill of diesel fuel significantly added trouble to the strained environment in the area. Several hundred people were involved in the cleanup operations in the summer of 2020. Gosh, how time has flown. A big number of special containers were flown into the area and placed along the worst affected rivers and streams. Spilled oil was pumped into the containers. In addition, the company started production of storage facilities for up to 100,000 tons of polluted soil. However, flooding, bad weather, and the harsh climate complicated operations. Information about the situation was firmly controlled by authorities, and Nornickel, hardly any independent environmental experts were granted permission to enter the area. A historical fine followed. They were in early 21. They had to pay a record big sum of 146 billion rubles, which is 166 euros, right? For
One
environmental
point 1.66
six
billion.
billion, yeah, for environmental damage. So this was pretty hairy. We
Yeah.
covered it first. I think. I don't think anybody
Mhm.
was covering this, and not, not for brownie points, but just a real quick aside, guys. Why I'm so tired is my daughter was in from her for business. She lives in uh, Atlanta now, and I didn't get home till 9 o'clock last night, and I had
No.
a meeting today that I set up at my house of my environmental organization, our county environmental group. We are the watchdogs of all the things, and so I had to clean the house. Then it was going to rain, so we were going to have it outside. So, I mean, I was crazy. Then I was out early this morning to get the food, and it was just, I'm very tired. But we did the show. I did not quit. And we have a lot of stuff we are talking about. It's not just keeping fracking out. It's not just pipelines. It's quality of life in our county, like all the morons that ride around on those fucking ATVs. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on. So that's, I asked, everybody saw my last video, Jennifer, on being an activist, a depressed collapsitarian, or a doomer. Can you be all three? Well, I'm all three, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm tired. I'm tired. And so now that COVID's kind of like taken sort of the left side, I'm doing things with them again. And of course, I want to do that. So anyway,
Mhm.
so I just thought I'd
Mhm.
let everybody know why I'm tired and I'm in pajamas that Katie sent me. Thank you, Katie. When you watch this, you might be working, but Katie sent me these most beautiful pajamas. Thank you. She spoils me. She sends me nice things. So
Mm.
anyway, yes, I'm so busy, Jean says. All right, Jen. So what's
All
going on in
right.
your neck of the woods besides the next article? Anything you want to tell us? You're busy all the time too.
Yeah, I've been pretty busy, and I got my house painted on Thursday and Friday, so I'm all
Very
ready for
nice.
the apocalypse. I can hunker down in a newly painted
In a
house
new
before it becomes impossible. Well, you think about it, right?
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
have to.
if you don't keep your house painted and it gets really, really hot and really, really dry, you need to have fresh paint on your
Like my
house.
nails.
Otherwise,
I
it'll
kept my
just
nails
fall
painted.
apart, right?
Yeah. I painted them purple because I'm out getting dirty. And I figured, okay, I have this purple paint. If I paint them purple, you can't see all the dirt. I know it's kind of stupid, but hey, shit's in my
Oh.
it's in my cabinet. So Matthew's with us. Oh my gosh, we just want to say hi. Hi Matthew, we love you. We miss you as a moderator, but we're glad you're here. Mwah. Okay. Matthew, our New Zealand wonder. We love him. Okay, so we're gonna move on.
And
And
yes,
I
we
I guess
are.
we'll tag team it, Jen. Why don't you take the
Uh-huh.
the the Fizzorg here. We're going now.
Uh-huh.
We were in
Uh-huh.
Siberia. We have been talking about the world. Now we're in the Antarctic.
That's right. And
All
this is
right.
just out in phys.org. Antarctic glaciers losing ice at fastest rate in 5,500 years. Study
Oh,
finds. Oh
oh,
boy.
oh, oh.
Thwaites Glacier. So this is a big drill down on Thwaites Glacier. That's what this is going to
Yeah.
be mostly concerned with. At the current rate of retreat, the vast glaciers, which extend deep into the heart of the ice sheet, could contribute to as much as 3.4 meters to global sea level rise over the next several centuries. Antarctica is covered by two huge ice masses, East and West Antarctic ice sheets, which feed many individual glaciers. Because of the warming climate, the West Antarctic ice sheet has been thinning at accelerated rates over the past few decades. Within the ice sheet, the Thwaites and Pine Island glaciers are particularly vulnerable to global warming and are already contributing to rises in sea level.
Mm.
Now, A new study led by the University of Maine academics from the Imperial College of London has measured the rate of the local sea level change, an indirect way to measure ice loss around these particularly vulnerable glaciers. They found that the glaciers have begun retreating at a rate not seen in the last 5,500 years, with areas of 192,000 square kilometers, nearly the size of the island of Great Britain, and 160 to 300 square kilometers, respectively. The Thwaites and Pine Island glaciers have the potential to cause large rises in global sea level. Co-author Dr. Dylan Rood of Imperial's Department of Earth Science and Engineering says that they reveal that although these vulnerable glaciers were relatively stable during the past few millennia, their current rate of retreat is accelerating and already raising global sea level. Those currently elevated rates of ice melting may signal that those vital arteries from the heart of the West Antarctic ice sheet have been ruptured, leading to accelerating flow into the ocean that is potentially disastrous for future global sea level in a warming world. Is it too late to stop the bleeding? Searching
Yeah.
seashells.
Okay.
During the mid Holocene period over 5,000 years ago, the climate was warmer than today, and thus sea levels were higher and glaciers smaller. The researchers wanted to study fluctuations in sea level since the mid Holocene, so studied the remnants of old Antarctic beaches, which are today elevated above modern sea level. They examined seashells and penguin bones on these beaches using radiocarbon dating, a technique that uses the radioactive decay of carbon locked in the shells and bones as a clock to tell us how long they have sat above sea level. When heavy glaciers sit on the land, they push down or load the Earth's surface. After the glacier's ice melts or unloads, the land bounces back so that what was once a beach is now higher than sea level, also known as isostatic rebound.
Mhm.
This explains why the local sea level for this land fell, while globally the water from melting ice caused global sea levels to rise. By pinpointing the precise age of these beaches, they could tell when each beach appeared and therefore reconstruct the
Wow.
changes in local or relative sea level over time.
That's cool.
The result showed a steady fall in relative sea level over the past 5,500 years, which the researchers interpret as the result of ice loss just prior to that time. This pattern is consistent with relatively stable glacier behavior with no evidence of large scale glacier loss or advance. They also showed that the rate of relative sea level fall since the mid Holocene was almost 5 times smaller than that measured today. The scientists found that the most likely reason for such a large difference is recent rapid ice mass loss. The researchers also compared the results to existing global models of the dynamics between ice and the Earth's crust. Their data shows that the models did not accurately represent the sea level rise history of the area during mid to late Holocene based on their data. This study helps to paint a more accurate picture of the history of the region. Although their data do not exclude the possibility of minor fluctuations of the Thwaites and Pine Island glaciers over the past 5,500 years, the researchers concluded that the simplest interpretation of their data is that these glaciers have been relatively stable since the mid Holocene until recent times, and that the present day rate of glacier retreat that has doubled over the past 30 years is indeed unprecedented for over the last 5,500 years. Lead author Professor Brenda Hall at the University of Maine says that relative sea level change allows you to see large scale crustal loading and unloading by ice. For example, glacier readvance, which would result in crustal loading, would slow the rate of relative sea level fall or potentially even submergence of the land below sea level. Stopping the bleeding. To better forecast the fate of the ice sheet and its impact on global sea level, the International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration, ITGC, the largest joint US UK program of field science ever conducted in Antarctica, which Imperial researchers are involved with, will improve our understanding of the past behavior of Thwaites Glacier during climate conditions similar to today. Important clues are also buried deep under the ice. To solve these mysteries, the researchers will be drilling through the glacier ice to collect rock underneath, which may contain evidence of whether current accelerating rates of melting are reversible or not. And my guess is
Is or
not.
not.
Or
Or
not reversible.
not.
They're just like the hubris and the lack of understanding of the magnitude of this problem. Reversible? Who are they kidding? Who are they kidding? Reversible? All the amount of greenhouse gases pouring into the atmosphere, and you
I
think it's
know.
reversible? You're still talking
No.
like that? I know. I'm sorry,
I know.
Sandy.
No. What are you sorry for? Be
Yeah.
you. This is our show. You
Yeah.
be you. You
Yeah.
be you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm very sensitive to this kind of hopeful language inserted always within the last paragraph or two. Then they forget everything they've ever known. They turn on their heads and they start proclaiming all this stuff, you know?
Yeah. You
And
got,
it's
I know,
just,
Jennifer.
you know.
You're preaching to the choir with this
Yeah, I know. I
group,
know.
but
I know.
yeah. Anyway, all right, guys. Then we're gonna move on because we have again, like I said, we have a pretty lofty goal, and we have a really good intermission video. You
Oh, yeah.
all better stay for. All right, so this is Counterpunch. Robert Hunziger, who we definitely all know and love. He's friends on Facebook with us, right? But not that he ever like probably pays attention or anything, but all right. Polar scientist, and this is more about the Thwaites. So, polar scientist explains the peril. So, it might be a little, overlapping, but we're going to read it. Ted Scambos, polar scientist with 20 trips to Antarctica under his belt, makes a living trekking across glaciers, measuring the speed, thickness of the ice and the structure of the ice. Dr. Scambos, he's from the University of where, Jennifer? You get to
He's
say it.
from the University of Colorado in Boulder.
Yay! Okay. So Boulder recently penned an article, Why Antarctica's Riskiest Glacier is Under Assault from Below and Losing Its Grip. The
Right.
below grip. Scambos is a lead principal investigator for the Science Coordination Office of the International Thwaites Glacier Collaboration, the SCO project. How many glaciers in the world have a team of scientists dedicated to an international collaborative research effort? Answer: Thwaites is the single most dominant factor influencing the integrity, survival, right, of every coastal city in the world and is clearly at risk. According to Scambos, Antarctica is a continent comprising several large islands, one of them the size of Australia, under a 10,000 foot thick layer of ice. Its glaciers have always been in motion, but beneath the ice, changes are taking place that are having profound effects on the future of the ice sheet and on the future of coastal communities around the world. Significantly, the ice sheet was nearly in balance as recently as the 1980s. 1980s, meaning
I
annual
remember that.
snowfall replaced annual ice flows. As a result, the early ice research in Antarctica involved trying to find any kind of dramatic changes, but with little success. However, within only a couple of decades, in the context of thousands of years of stability, everything has suddenly changed. According to Scambos, but now, as the surrounding air and ocean warm, areas of the Antarctic ice sheet that had been stable for thousands of years, thousands of them are breaking and melting and thinning, or in some case, collapsing in a heap. As these edges of the ice retract, they send a powerful reminder. If even a small part of the ice sheet were to completely crumble into the sea, the impact of the world's coasts would be severe. West Antarctica's Thwaites Glacier is the continent's prime candidate for a major collapse. In contrast to East Antarctica, solid core of small mountain ranges underneath the ice bed, West Antarctica was once the ocean bottom. That's pretty wild. Its ice gets warmer and it moves much faster. Only 120,000 years ago, it was likely an open ocean, and definitely 2 million years ago. Accordingly, this is important because our climate today is fast approaching temperatures like those of a few million years ago. The realization that the West Antarctic ice sheet was gone in the past is the cause of great concern in the global warming era. Thwaites is the big boy glacier of West Antarctica. It is the widest glacier on the planet at 70 miles across.
Wow.
At issue, yeah, it's a big one. At issue, recent changes on the vast continent have been sudden and fast. And what is it, Jennifer? Much
Much
faster
faster
than
than a
well, he says ever, but we say previously expected. Yep. So, this in particular, the height of the surface has been dropping by up to 3 feet a year. The huge cracks are forming at the coast, and ice now flows over at over a mile per year. That flow
Wow.
rate has doubled since 1990. Yeah, it sure has.
Wow.
The net result is the new era of geographically rapid ice flow officially underway for the 21st century. This is not a welcome event. Nobody knows for sure how it will play out or how soon, but the risk is unfathomably scary, punctuated by the dispiriting fact that scientists' models that predict future climate change are almost always late to the party. This makes it
Oh, yeah.
it makes it nearly almost impossible to plan for the next catastrophe. As further explained by Scambos, under the ice, the geological structure of Thwaites is a recipe for disaster. Wow. It is
Wow.
definitely a recipe for disaster.
Wow.
Uh, ugh. Until only recently, Thwaites had not measurably changed since it was first mapped in the 40s. Wow, it was only first mapped in the 40s, Jen. So I guess we didn't have the technology that we have
Oh, yeah.
now. Yeah, so
Yeah.
they started in the 40s. All of that has now changed. That global warming has intervened. It's what's happening hidden under that spooks scientists. Ocean water well above the melting point is eroding the base
Mm.
of the ice,
Mm.
all of which impacts the entire structure. So the entire structure. Wow. Mapping
Jesus.
now exposes the fractures and those huge cracks that I am just continually playing, uh, along with the speed of flow, all in suggesting the monster may give way within only a few years, which would be a horrendous step towards more rapid ice flow to the sea. So the bottom line on this one is that West Antarctica could soon begin a multi century decline that would add up to 10 feet of sea level. That
Mm.
is heavy. That is pretty
Mm.
heavy. I mean, we've talked about this. I know Antonio is like really into mapping this stuff. In the process, sevenfold, posing large challenges for people with a stake in the coastal cities. So when does the first foot of sea level register on the shorelines? Nobody really knows for sure. Meanwhile, as the world wonders, aloud why and how the planet's solidest, long-standing ice sheet is ever closer to crumbling, it's frankly disgusting and outrageous that it's even an issue, especially considering decades of warnings by scientists about the risk of fossil fuels that spew CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, blanketing heat. So now, because of human recklessness, in the face of warning after warning,
Mm.
an ominous, horrific cycle of meltdown has already started at the worst possible
Mm.
location on the planet, where 150 to 200 feet of water has remained frozen in time throughout all of human history until now. Forthwith, it's payback time after decades of human stupidity, bordering on lunacy, in the face that science has been right all along. Smart people know how to adhere to science. And I think that what we are
Wow.
going to do is send out a toilet flush of the day to the politicians and the morons that didn't listen. There you go. To all of those people that Robert was talking to, you get the toilet flush of the day. You have a comment, Jen, on this one?
Well, I mean, it's shocking. Um, I just, Thwaites is melting down so quickly, and there is so much sea level rise wrapped up in that one glacier between Pine Island Glacier and Thwaites Glacier. That's 10 feet of sea level rise in a fairly short amount of time, and that's
Mm-hmm.
just that. We're not talking about Greenland. We're not talking about all the glaciers in, I think, the Totten Glacier in East Antarctica. I mean, they're all hemorrhaging water. They're all getting hot. And as they get hot, they melt. And that is exactly what we are seeing. And anyone who's not thinking about sea level rise and they live on the coast, I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Well, you better think
Gotta
about
do
it.
it.
You better think about it. Well, guess what? It's intermission time. Now, we want you to stay. We're kind of doing a bit of a segue, but this is a really interesting piece. So, we are going to get this ready and give me a second. And Jennifer and I are going to play this video for you. Please
Mm.
let me get it ready. I'm going to pull it up. It's really good. So here we go. Intermission time. Okie dokie.
In what was largely seen as a final warning, the latest IPCC climate report warned that it's now or never if the world wants to prevent an irreversible climate disaster. But as global leaders struggle to do what's necessary in order to avoid the worst, some of the world's most vulnerable nations are already facing the consequences of inaction. India, for example, just weathered an unprecedented heat wave that scientists say is linked, yes, you guessed it, to human activity. For more, Roxy Matthew Cole joins me for Perspective. He's a climate scientist at the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology and also a lead author of those IPCC reports. Roxy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So for those of us who are not scientists, and because you are a specialist on climate change in the Indo-Pacific region and its impact on local weather, can you break down in layman's terms the link between recent extreme weather events like the heat wave in India, for example, and human activity?
Right. So India is at a very crucial juncture in terms of climate change because it's already seeing 50% increase in the number of cyclones and a threefold rise in extreme rainfall events causing floods and the heat waves in the Indo-Pak region that we are seeing right now. And this is all in response to that 1 degree Celsius change in global surface temperatures. Now, what is happening? As the globe emits more and more carbon dioxide, that stays in the atmosphere for a long time, for hundreds of or thousands of years. And it is well spread. So no matter whether it is the US or the Europe or India or China emitting, the carbon dioxide emissions are well spread. And it's affecting, the changes in temperatures are affecting the tropical regions the most, particularly South Asian Indian region, which is covered on all three sides by the waters of the Indian Ocean. And we see in the IPCC report that it's the Indian Ocean that is the warming at the fastest rate among all the ocean basins. Yeah? And at the same time, on the north of South Asia, the Himalayas, the mountain ranges and the glaciers are melting rapidly. So you can see on all sides of India and South Asia, the climate is varying at a rapid pace. And one reason for this Indian Ocean to warm at a fast rate and churn out these extreme weather events is because the oceans are absorbing more than 93% of the heat from global warming. And this is equivalent to about 7 Hiroshima atomic bombs every second, every day, every year. So that is the kind of amount of heat that is additional heat from global warming that is being absorbed by the oceans.
It's easy to get lost, I think, Roxy, in the different climate reports, all of the projections and figures. Could you perhaps tell us what you think are the most telling statistics, records broken, for example, in terms of temperatures or carbon emissions that speak most to the gravity of the climate crisis?
Right. So one of the most compelling outcomes from the IPCC report is that right now we are almost at 1.1 degrees Celsius in terms of global temperature change. But the global commitments are not sufficient enough to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2040. That is between 2020 and 2040, we will inevitably see 1.5 degrees Celsius, and by 2060 at 2 degrees Celsius. This is because the global commitments are not sufficient enough to keep the temperatures down, the emissions down. And right now, even with the 1 degree Celsius, we are seeing heat waves which are broken records, like the Indo-Pak heat waves. This is a heat wave which didn't just last for one day. It was not just for one day. It was not a week. It was not a month. It was a season-long heat wave that we saw in the India-Pak region. And this covered the entire region from Pakistan to northwest India in a diagonal shape towards southern parts of India. And the temperatures are still high. It started from March, then April, then May, even during June as well. And we see multiple extremes overlap. So it was not just about the heat wave. There was a deficit in rainfall throughout the entire season. So season-long heat wave, season-long deficit in rainfall. This compounding together to dry deficit conditions, which kind of aggravated the heat wave situation and also is impacting the food, the water, energy, and economic security of the country. India is one of the largest exporters of wheat, but the wheat exports are also hit this time. We also see that because of the dry and deficit and hot conditions, there are wildfires happening across parts of India and Pakistan at the same time. This is increasing the pollution and affecting health as well. And to cut down the impacts, there is more pressure on irrigation because the agriculture is impacted. There is more pressure on using air conditioning because people need to cool themselves. And this is resulting in more usage of more carbon emissions. So it's a vicious cycle that we are seeing here. So records are being broken every year. We see that happening. And it's time for us to take action.
So speaking of action, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but that brings me to perhaps if you could be brief, because we don't have very much time left. But I think what scientists are saying and what you kind of suggest in the response there is that in some ways, on some fronts, it's already too late. What's needed is not just small measures like banning paper straws or even having electric straws, but a complete overhaul of the way modern society works. Do you think this is realistic?
Well, what is suggested is that we need a collective action. Climate change has gone beyond our hands, beyond the hands of individual or a state or a country. At global level, we need collective action. And it's not just the governments, as citizens themselves, we need to cut down emissions and also look forward to ways of adaptation, local adaptation, because even though climate change is global, the impacts felt at each region is totally local. So we need to look at local adaptation measures as well. But at the same time, there should be more investment in innovative measures to cut down the emissions.
I'm so sorry, sir. I have to cut you off there. That's all we have time for. But Roxy Matthew-Cole, thank you so much for all of that very insightful information. And thank you for joining us on France 24.
Okay, so that was I thought the graphics were amazing in what they showed there. Let me shut that off. Yeah, the graphics were. What do you think about that message, Jennifer? You turned me on to it.
Well, he says exactly what people need to hear in order to understand the gravity and the magnitude. And so he's telling it like it is. And India is going to be one of the hardest hit. And it's happening now. I mean, they're above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, pretty much every day. And you can see that heat wave was not like a week or a couple of weeks. It was like months. And it seems like the jet stream gets stuck and climate patterns just dig in and the hot gets hotter and so it goes.
I hear you. And we had Kailash on, and we'll probably bring him back as our Indian correspondent because we need somebody from that part of the country, the world. And I think Kailash would be more than happy to come on with us again and fill us in. So our team is ever growing. I mean,
it is. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, we're not a big channel. We're never going to be a big channel. We're never going to monetize the actual channel. We have, besides a little buy me a coffee, but we certainly are looking and have the most interesting, wonderful people. And we just want to tell you guys, we really love you. And thank you for being with us. And now we are going to move on to The Guardian. And Jennifer, this one is yours, baby.
Okay. So they're going to burn it all, guys. They're bound and determined. gold rush for
Oh,
gas
yeah.
production threatens to lock in global heating. No kidding. New dash for gas driven by energy disruption and rising prices spurns warnings to cease exploration to meet 1.5 heating limits. So apparently doesn't apply to them. Okay, here we go, guys. Countries around the world are pouring funds into new natural gas facilities that could destroy the chances of limiting global heating in response to soaring energy prices and the war in Ukraine. Governments include the US, Germany, the UK, and Canada are investing in new gas production, distribution, and use as they seek to sanction Russia over the invasion of Ukraine, according to new research. The findings from Climate Action Tracker Research Initiative show a dash for gas underway that will lock countries into fossil fuel use at a crucial time when scientists have warned that a decisive turn towards low carbon alternatives within the next few years is the only way to stave off climate breakdown. Nicholas Hone of New Climate Institute, one of the partners behind the Climate Action Tracker, said, "We're about to witness a gold rush for new fossil gas production, pipelines, and liquefied natural gas facilities, locking us into another high carbon decade." Foolish, foolish, foolish.
Mm.
The report highlighted the US, which has signaled a deal to export additional LNG to the EU through an increased effort on fracking. Germany and Italy have also signed deals with Qatar as a gas supplier, as has Egypt, the host of
No.
the world's next climate summit, COP27, in Sharm el Sheikh this November. How ironic.
You know what, Jennifer? Instead of COP 22nd, they should just freaking go backwards.
Canada also plans a new LNG production, a fast tracking construction to meet export demand. Overall, fossil fuel production has increased in Canada, the US, Norway, Italy, and Japan, according to Climate Action Tracker. Good job, guys.
Good job.
Yeah. The UK is also facing a massive expansion of oil and gas production in the North Sea as the government has imposed a windfall tax on the industry that contains a loophole encouraging companies to invest in new production. Developing countries are getting in on the act too. Nigeria is reviving gas pipeline projects that had been shelved, and Senegal and other countries are hoping to explore their gas reserves. Oil and gas companies around the world are enjoying a bonanza after the war in Ukraine sent energy prices, already rising as the world recovered from the economic shock of COVID-19, to fresh highs. The dash for gas comes as scientists have warned it is now or never on the climate. Global greenhouse gas emissions must be halved by 2030, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
To give the world a chance of limiting global temperature rises to 1.5 C above pre-industrial levels, the target agreed at last year's COP26 climate summit. Some countries have argued that gas production has a role in the transition to clean energy future, as gas produces less carbon dioxide than coal. But the International Energy Agency warned a year ago that no new oil and gas exploration could take place from this year on if the world was to limit global heating to 1.5. In
Oh,
other
that's
words, just
magical thinking. It is. It's just, let's just magically think, okay.
I know. Separate research has also found that moving directly to renewable energy from coal is cheaper than using gas as a transition fuel. Dorks, use it as a transition fuel. Bill Hare, chief executive of climate analytics, also a partner in the Climate Action Tracker, said the world was compounding the mistake made after COVID-19 pandemic when, despite soaring green rhetoric, few countries made a decisive shift in favor of low carbon economic recovery. He
Mm,
warned,
mm,
quote,
mm.
something has to change. We cannot go on responding to short term shocks, be they pandemics or energy shocks from conflict, by taking steps that would increase emissions, ignoring the looming crisis of climate change. Hare also pointed out that many alternative policy governments should use, such as improving energy efficiency, ramping up renewable energy, boosting public transport, and imposing windfall taxes on the bumper profits of fossil fuel companies. These have been largely neglected in many countries, the CAT report warned, which have focused on short term energy responses instead. And that is the
Oh,
crux of the whole
thing.
bloody
You're right.
problem, is that we always look for the short term thing, and it is nearly seeming, we're trying to strategize, we're trying to change, we're trying to get off of fossil fuel and everything else, but
Right.
we're like children,
I know.
we're just like
And
children.
and there are people with a lot of ideas and solutions and all, but there's no real political, not the kind of political move that we would need to see worldwide. And there are too many countries with deniers that are in Orban and Bolsonaro, and who knows what happens in the United States. It's all over after the next election.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We will see.
Yeah.
So we're
We
gonna move
shall
on because
see.
we have another one, another guardian, and but we're going
Wow.
to Australia, folks. We said it was the three A's: Arctic, Antarctic, and Australia, and this is also very concerning for everyone in Australia, for our
Right.
friends down under, and even
Right.
New Zealand. Um, this East Coast, and maybe we could tag team this one. You're a lot more educated in La Nina than I am, but Australia's East Coast could be hit by that rare triple La Nina that brings flooding rains and cooling weather for the third summer in a row, a senior U.S. government scientist says. A U.S. government scientist. So isn't that a lovely picture? And of course, these
Mm.
pictures, it's almost like we're getting numb to this stuff because we're seeing it every day, every week. Yeah. So experts say the prospect of a triple La Nina is real, but there is disagreement between the different computer models, and Australia could yet avoid a return of summer floods. Wouldn't that be nice? Scientists and weather forecasts are watching temperatures in an area in the tropical Pacific Ocean that has been unusually cool in recent months. One signal that the current La Nina could either remain in place until summer or fade and then return. Dr. Mike McFadden, a senior research scientist at the U.S. government's National Ocean NOAA, said that often La Ninas come in pairs. You know, Paul Beckwith has been doing some work on this.
Mhm.
He's been talking. He always deals with that last one he did was really good. I had to listen to it twice. Um, but in rare situations, La Ninas persist into a third year, and it looks like this might be happening this year, McFadden said. Triple dip La Ninas are rare. This one, the last one was from 1998 until 2001, so more than 20 years ago. So this has the potential to be a triple dip La Nina that could go into early 2023. Seattle
Mm.
based
Mm.
McFadden is in Australia, meeting fellow scientists, and
Mhm.
delivered a public seminar in Sydney this week on conditions in the Pacific and what they could mean for the months ahead. Gee, I wonder, did he take a boat? You
Mm.
know, of course he flew. Ocean surface temperatures in an area of the tropical Pacific known as Nino 3.4, covering about 6 million square kilometers, are used to help gauge whether there could be an El Nino or La Nina.
Hmm.
So the El Ninas. Okay, you that was a good
Hmm.
Okay, keep that for the end and we'll go over what that meant. El Nina they line up with the average temperatures in the tropical Pacific, and they tend to mean hotter and drier conditions for the east of Australia. La Ninas are associated with an increased probability of rainfall, and cooler temperatures are linked to below average temperatures in the region of the ocean. McFadden said in April the Nino 3.4 region of the Pacific was at its coldest since 1950. In May, it was the coldest since 1988. He said even though the world's oceans were heating up because of global heating, there was enough natural variability uh, to overwhelm that heating for short periods or in particular regions. So the Bureau of Meteorology declared a La Nina in October 2020 that lasted until March of 21. La Nina conditions then returned in November 2021, have lasted until now. Take it away, Jen. Your turn.
A bureau update on the current La Nina issued earlier this week said that it was slowly weakening. And while most models suggest the Pacific could return to more neutral conditions, two computer models found La Nina could remain in place all through Australia's winter. Dr. Argus
Nino.
Santoso, an expert on changes to El Nino and La Nina at the University of South Wales, said there had been about 10 back to back La Ninas since the 1950s, but only two periods that had seen 3 summers in a row with La Nina conditions: 1998 to 2000 and 1973 to 1975. He said that if cool conditions in the Pacific remained, then La Nina was likely to end was likely at the end of this year. But, quote, I would say that's uncertain at the moment. As well as being linked to floods in Australia, McFadden said current back to back La Ninas were tied to severe drought covering much of the west of the US. This also increased the risk of wildfires and was causing water shortages for agriculture and power generation, he said. There's a developing water crisis in the western half of the United States. 90% is in severe or extreme drought
Yeah.
because of this La Nina. So when we have the La Nina,
Yeah.
here in the United States, we experience drought, we experience a little bit cooler. What happens in Australia, they have these incredible floods that just push through, you know. It's amazing. And when you were saying I did a big humph, I was
Yeah. What was that
humphing.
about? You're humping.
I was humphing at at the area of the ocean, which is the La Nina and El Nino nursery. I was like, oh, that's so interesting,
Oh.
because it's the nursery where it
Oh.
determines. Um, let me see. Oh God, where was it? Yeah, now I'm gonna
How
lose
far
my
do I you
place.
want me to go all the way back? Right here. Okay.
No,
You
I'm not
moved.
looking at you. I'm not looking at you.
Oh, okay. I'll
I
get back
never
to where
look
we
at
were.
you. I
You
never
look
look
at
at
your
you.
own. Yeah.
I look at my own thing.
Yeah, I'm
I
just trying
I
to
could
find it for
never read it
everybody else.
from your
No,
screen.
no, I was trying to find it for everybody else.
But it is that the thing is, there's a point, a part of
Yeah.
the ocean, and it's kind of the inception point. It's what is going to determine, or you can actually forecast what, if it's going to be a La Nina or if it's going to be an El Nino. It's determined by this patch of ocean that's
Wow.
about 6 million square kilometers. So that's kind of that's what I was humping at, just to let
I'm
you
glad
know.
that yeah, good. I couldn't pick your brain at that
Yeah.
moment. I was trying to figure it out, but I know that you are much more educated in this particular area. Where were we?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to finish it up.
Yep.
Professor Matthew England, this is like 4 paragraphs from the bottom.
Okay.
Professor Matthew England of Climate Change Research Center at the University of South Wales said that the current La Nina conditions were lasting longer than usual. He said at this time of year, forecast models were known to have less reliability, but a third La Nina would not be welcome news for many Australians. I don't think anyone wants this to happen. We have
No.
seen how damaging these flood events are, and it would likely be those same coastal towns up and down the coast of Queensland and New South Wales that will be hit by these events. Ben Domenichino, a meteorologist at Weather Zone, said he thought that the chances of a third La Nina summer in a row for Australia were about 50-50. But regardless of whether La Nina remained in place or faded and then returned, the coming months were likely to bring cooler and wetter conditions than average. And another thing I
Good.
was thinking, Sandy, is that
Yes, Jennifer.
if there's kind of like this super triple whammy La Nina, does that mean that the El Nino that might ensue could also be a triple whammy?
Holy
And if
crap.
that happens, which could, um,
Could. Could.
then, and if it coincides with the solar cycle, like Sam Carana said in the Arctic News blog spot, does that mean that we are looking at a situation where we're going to have very, very hot conditions
Well, we're having
in a
very, very hot conditions.
post La Nina? I'm
Yeah, well,
talking about
actually,
like next year
oh,
and the year
next year.
after.
Oh, even
I'm
worse
not
than
talking about now. I'm talking about next
even
year.
worse.
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah,
very
even worse,
scary.
because La Nina will end, and when La Nina ends, it's
Holy
going to be a
shit.
lot hotter because El Nino is going to start, and El Nino releases a lot of oceanic heat into the atmosphere. And it coincides with the solar cycle peak, which is the sunspot peak that's also happening, which also leads to warmer conditions. Is just thinking about this, Sandy.
Good.
Just
It's
thinking
wild.
about
And we
this.
should continue that thought
Yeah.
with another show and continue on
Yeah.
that. You know what, Jen?
Yeah.
I think we should read the last article. I think you should.
You think?
Because yeah, we kind of gonna bring you from something a little bit more, well, a little kind of wild here. And Jen, you want to do this one because you found it. And would you buy a doomed house? Would you
Would you
like to
buy
do
a
this
doomed
one?
house?
Well,
Yeah,
my house
sure.
is pretty doomed because I need everything done to it,
Yeah.
but that's beside the point. God.
Yeah.
All right. Take it
So
away.
this is from a periodical called futurism.com. And would you buy a doomed house? The housing market is soaring across the globe, making it nearly impossible for younger people to finance homes. But there's one village that takes the wild real estate market cake. The village of Fairborn in Gwynedd, Wales. The small town is probably going to be underwater by 2054 thanks to climate change and infrastructure decay, but that
Jeez.
isn't stopping people from buying homes and vacation rentals there, according to the Manchester Evening News. According to real estate market tracker Rightmove, home prices in the village have surged 35% since 2019 alone. That's despite the fact that many homes will be leveled in the next 30 years and infrastructure like gas and electricity will be dismantled, according to the Evening News. Residents may even be forced to pay thousands of British pounds to have their homes raised. After 2054, the village seawall will no longer be maintained, leaving it entirely vulnerable to sea level rise. That's
Really?
basically they're saying, see ya. Fairborn is suffering the same fate as places like Neffin and Aberdyfi, said one resident, neither of which do I know where these things are. One resident who spoke to the North Wales Live on condition of anonymity. Late last year, I had a look down Penryn Drive on the seafront, and I was staggered by the number of properties that are now second homes and holiday lets. The grim reality, it sounds like people driving up home prices have basically made the calculation that by the time it's underwater, they'll be dead.
There you go. Okay, they'll just be dead. Here, that gets a gong hit. Boom. They'll be dead.
They accept what's going to happen here, but they are of an age where they may not be around in 25 years' time. Fairborn is far from the only disappearing village, but it's one of the few that has both acknowledged the coming disaster and is still thriving, thanks to the fact that climate catastrophe isn't predicted to strike within the current buyers' lifetimes. Some global cities like Jakarta have opted to move to new, less flood prone locations, but others like Miami are ignoring sea level rise altogether. Good shot. Thank
I
you,
thought that was a
Miami.
good one to end with.
Yeah,
I
it
just
was
wanted to
good.
read this quick. Sat12, hello, hello. Thank you for joining. Sat12 is somebody who inspired me completely to make the video I made, and he just said that's an obscure place for Americans and Canadians. What we were talking about. Let's talk about coastal Florida. Yeah, we will definitely talk about coastal Florida because coastal Florida is also we know what coastal Florida is. It's going like to sound like this. And then wait. It's going to sound okay. I gotta make sure I got the right one. Is it this one? No, it's not that one. Oh, damn it. I was trying to be good on it. Here we go. There's coastal Florida. I got it. All right. Sat12, thank you for coming. That's coastal Florida. Yeah. We'll talk about it. We have a lot of people. Jennifer, we do have a few I had starred. So
Yes.
I want to go by Gary's. And Gary, the first question was I know a farmer who says crop insurance is getting really expensive. Has anyone read about it in the media? I have not seen it. So if that is something anybody knows about, you can always email me and we can follow up on that one. Matt Hunter said Indonesia is due a tsunami he saw. Wow, that's going to be hairy. That's, yes. And Jean wanted to know, I think you all have discussed this, but I forget the sea will have less salinity too, and this will affect sea life. Oh, yes.
Well, especially in places where it's dumping off of the glaciers and into the oceans, that the salinity changes and it actually stratifies the ocean as well because um, the warm and heavier salt water. You would think that warm water would be lighter than cold water, but in this case, the cold fresh lies atop like a lens over the um, w- warm salty, so it kind of
Mm-hmm.
stays in these two little layers. And that further stratifies the ocean and probably impacts the ocean current slowdown as well of the AMOC.
Oh,
But
good.
yes, there are places that, where the salinity is much less due to the fresh water coming into the system.
Absolutely. Okay, Jim had his. Thank you, Jennifer. That was really perfect. A result of the volcano erupting in the Pacific earlier this year. This was earlier. He was making a comment. Was something? I believe. No, I don't know where it went. I forgot exactly where that was from. Jim, if you can remind us where that was from, I'm so sorry. Allison Frank, is there going to be an unprecedented heat wave in the Midwest this week? Or is it there? And the Southwest is currently breaking heat records every day right now.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
My friend wrote to me. She's in
mhm.
as Apache Junction in Arizona, and it was like very, very, very hot. I said, "Well, isn't it usually pretty hot there?" And she was actually saying, "No, not like this." And it's the first time she has ever admitted to me that this is not usual and customary. And that's the first time because she's been in denial. And now I don't think she can be in denial anymore. I mean, how can you be? Her pool is 90 degrees, her pool. Like, Americans have pools.
Well, the truth of the matter is that climate change is barreling down the pike faster than we could ever imagine. And it's only because of our puny human lifetimes. We expect it to be like a Hollywood movie. But nonetheless, it's exponential and it's happening faster and faster. And every year is just going to be hotter than the previous one, bringing with it all the associated calamities and difficulties, including food shortages.
Yeah.
That first article that we read today, Sandy talked about the food
Yes.
shortages and the
And
small
Scott,
harvest.
by the way, we did the flush already. Scott missed it. He missed it. So you have to come on time. You never know when we're going to do the flush, Scott. Sorry. I'm just sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's see. Anything else? Ariel's with us. Isn't it always important to mention storm surge when discussing sea level rise
Yes,
to help this sink in for
yes.
those who are not familiar?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for mentioning that, Ariel.
Hmm.
I mean, the hurricanes are getting stronger, the sea level's increasing. Anytime you have a strong hurricane with additional sea level, that much is just going to be sweeping into the interior. And yeah, storm surge is a huge consideration. And I'm so glad that you brought it up. Thank you.
And she did, and that she did. Let's see, what else do we have? Trulia's picky picky. You should have seen the clouds of mosquitoes we found ourselves in this weekend. Really? Yikes! Yuck! All right, Gary had one more, and this was maybe EVC, Environmental Coffee House, could do, or we call ourselves ECH. EVC sounds so trendy. Sounds like electric vehicle. We could do a show about the actual global temperature rise versus the propaganda that keeps pretending we don't already have 1.5 and 2.5 or so locked in by 2040. Very good, Gary.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Very good.
that's
Well said. And,
we
restarting the marker again and again and again so it doesn't look so bad. But then if you go back and you add up all the little increments, because they keep restarting like closer and closer, right, Sandy? And it's, yeah,
boy.
yeah, it's good. Would be a good show. Thank you bringing that
Thank
up.
you, Gary, our new moderator. If you want the job, just let us know if you want to keep the job, Gary, because you're always here. And I thought that it would be something you might like to do. But if you don't, just let us know. Okay? We certainly don't want to hoist, hit, throw a moderator wrench. If it hits you on the head, boing, it might hurt you. So we don't want to do that. Absolutely not. So this has been a good show.
Yeah, it
I think
has.
we've been an hour and 31 minutes, and oh my God, as tired as I was, this flew by.
Yeah,
Flew by.
yeah.
And you know
It
what,
actually
Jen?
did.
We do one show a week together. So an hour and a half,
Mhm.
even though they used to be an hour, you can't cram it all in an hour.
Yeah, it depends on the week. We'll just kind of hang loose and see what the week
Yeah.
brings us.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one from Jim. Soon they'll use 2021 year as the baseline and no longer 1880. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, oh. All right.
Um,
Well, a little public message here, Jennifer. If you can join us Wednesday, we are having our interactive show. I will have a link. We are going to discuss the video that I made talking about activist, depressed collapsitarian, doomer. Can you be all three? And then Sat One, who I think maybe Bad Empanada, maybe. I used Bad Empanada, who is my new. I am binging on his history videos. He is an amazing historian, just fantastic. Bad Empanada channel, but he did bring up, or the Sat 1, 2, or 12 or whatever brought up some points about all three. And then today he added extras about preppers and all this. So this is going to be a really interactive, interesting show. Please do come. Live link for those of you who want to join it. Be sure to watch that video I made, please, because I want a good showing. If you don't want to come on live with us, be in the chat. This is going to be a good show. It's going to be an excellent show. And don't
and what
forget,
time is that show at,
that
Sandy?
is 9 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m.
Okay.
Eastern. And there will be, again, there will be a link for anybody that wants to join with this software. I am limited to 4 at once at the, most. This is not a Zoom or, it's different. Don't forget, with our little like and subscribe, we're not monetized, but still it helps. And thank you for the buy me a coffees. And I forgot, by the way, I will get out the cups that need to go out. There are a few people out there. I don't think he's with us. What is he? Whatever. Sender. You know who you are. I will get him out. I haven't been to the post office. And quite frankly, postage is high and I owe some coffee cups. So I just want to make sure you don't think I'm a loser. I'm just very busy. And there we go. Jen, you can bring up the rear and we say goodnight.
Oh, all right, guys. Well, I think we had a really well-balanced show tonight. We kind of went around the world. We focused in on the overall, what to expect by the end of summer. And everybody always likes to have the forecast, and then we went back to our old favorite, the Barents Observer. Norilsk is still a mess, as we suspected. Antarctica is melting, melting, melting. That we have confirmed again and again in 2 different articles. We saw in our intermission that India is messed up beyond all recognition, and that regardless of all of this, we're going to have a gold rush for gas production. and it's going to lock
Oh,
in
it's
global
gonna be
heating.
fun.
Well,
Jesus
great job, team. And then on top of that, Australia is having a triple La Nina. And then in Wales, they're buying houses that are going to be underwater in 30 years
Yeah,
because
there
they
you
don't
go.
care because they'll
Oh,
be
honey, they're
dead.
doing that everywhere. They're doing that on the coast of.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you on Wednesday. Of course, Jennifer and I will be back on next Sunday, as always. Um, I will let you know I'm going to a 3-day music festival. I'm not sleeping there, and I will be back for the fucking show on Sunday. You can bet. All right. I love you, Jennifer.
Love
Very
you
much.
too.
Very, very much.
I
You
love
know
you
I do.
too. Looky who's
Oh, look at
here.
me. We got the
The
kitty.
pussycat. The big pussycat. Meow. Meow.
All right. Mwah.